Coming up next on Headline Humboldt, Supervisor Virginia Bass has long been at the center of politics in Humboldt County, and she'll soon step down from the Board of Supervisors to once again become a private citizen. We'll talk with her about her career, her life, and what the future has in store for this longtime public servant. Also, North Coast Congressman Jared Huffman's new legislation could see sacred native lands placed in trust for the Yurok Tribe. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. From the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. When I first became a reporter in Humboldt County back in June 2001, yes, that's how old I am, Virginia Bass was already a powerful name in Eureka politics and culture. Over the past 2 decades, she's worked hard to build that legacy and establish herself as a formidable leader, first as a councilwoman, then as mayor, and finally as the 4th District seat on the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors. She's waged several political battles over the years against several notable opponents, including the longtime local politician Bonnie Neely, a powerful servant in her own right, who Bass defeated to represent the 4th District in 2010. Despite these challenges, Bass has never lost what's possibly her greatest strength, an ability to connect with people and build pragmatic coalitions that get important work done. Descended from a prominent local family and working for many years in a landmark Eureka restaurant, OH's Townhouse, that was owned and operated by her family, Bass wasn't born into a position of economic privilege. She's worked hard through a range of circumstances and conditions, only to rise through those ranks and ultimately assume the role of community leader, all while also raising a family. Through everything, she's maintained a kind and welcoming disposition that is apparent to all who've witnessed her work. Some may not agree with her politics or like some of her more visible political allies, but they've never seen her as disagreeable. That kind of politics, difference without division, is a far cry from the partisan blood feud where we've all ended up. Joining us now live in the studio is former mayor and outgoing Supervisor Virginia Bass. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. And all those things you said are really nice. Are you sure you're talking about me?
Yeah, I've been following you for a while.
I kind of recognize some of those moments there.
So, I mean, I've been, like I said, covering you for 21 years in some form or another, for the most part. How does it feel to be coming to what may be the end of that term of service?
You know, I think the word that keeps coming up is bittersweet. And I used to like bittersweet chocolate, and this is life. So it's exciting, but it's also sad in a lot of ways. And, thinking back to the things I've been through, the different issues, the wonderful people I've worked with, some of the more notable, not so fun moments. And it's, it's hard. Change is hard. Like I said, saying goodbye is hard, whether it's talking, a friend or what you love to do. Yeah. And so it's taking a little adjusting still.
I'm sure, yeah.
But my things are in boxes already. Let's just say Rex likes to make me be very aware every day that I'm soon out the door. So.
Yeah, I bet. Short timer. I'm
sure.
With
friends like him,
Yes. Now, so when did you first feel the pull to get into public service? I just found out that your father was on the Board of Supervisors. Yeah. So he served a 4-year term, probably, 8 years before you got on the board?
Oh, gosh, a long time ago. It was in the 70s.
Oh, 70s,
yeah,
okay.
I was in junior, actually I was in elementary school when he ran.
Wow.
And I got tired of being drugged to all those events, and it was the stupidest job anybody could ever want, right? I thought, why would anyone do that? And,
bunch of adults in a room.
Bunch of adults. Talking. And back then it was smoking. You go to these huge, 500 people stuffed into these little rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And me sitting at the head table looking miserable. So I thought it was, really a dumb job that anybody would want. And it wasn't really his thing. He was encouraged by business people to run, and so he did. At the same time, he was running a restaurant where he'd get up in the morning and go to work in a suit, cutting steak, cutting up all, doing all the work, then going to the courthouse, trying to keep up with the reading. It just wasn't his kind of thing. He was a people person, and that was not
a
something.
walk.
No.
Yeah,
so that was back in 74.
Wow.
And so for years I said I'd never do anything as silly as this. And I kind of accidentally ran for city council. And I say that to people and they go, how did you do it accidentally?
Yeah, how'd you fall into that?
Certainly was not planned. I had become really involved with the Chamber of Commerce and like the Restaurant Association, different organizations.
Yeah.
And at the time that the city council race was coming up, Jim Gupton was running, and he used to deliver produce. So we'd have conversations, and I knew he was running.
Yeah.
So I would tell people, because they were asking me to run for city council, but it was in a different ward.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, I would, but I don't live in the right place, and Jim's running. So I was safe.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then at the last minute, I remember getting a call in my car. It was like with a bag phone, parked in Old Town. And there was this voice that now I know who it was, but they didn't say anything other than, Jim's not going to run. Are you going to?
Yeah.
I was like, that's new information to me. And I said yes. And and when I hung up, it's like, okay, I didn't tell my husband. I didn't talk to my mother, who was my boss. What did I do just now? And then shortly thereafter, you tell one person who no longer lives in town, he knows who he is, and soon it spreads all over. But I'm convinced to this day that if I went home and thought about it, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So it was one of the best impetuous decisions I've ever made. But sometimes it's like, wait, didn't I say I'd never do that?
It's one of those things where in an instant of time, your whole life can change. And have that turned out to be a major turn in your life. I mean, you spent a lot of years in the public eye, first as city council person, and how do you think that your politics and your job as a supervisor differs from your father's? Do you feel like you guys are the same in a lot of ways, or different, or how? Was it hard for you to forge your own way, I guess?
Oh no, my father passed away in '86, which I'm sure he's probably thinking, he probably knows exactly what's happening and wondering why I got into this. But I was so young then, still in junior high by the time he took office, and didn't pay attention to it. Yeah. I don't think he ever thought I would. The assumption was I'd stay with the restaurant, which obviously I did. But it's just, I don't know how I'd say if I'm different. I think he just, how do I say, very old style, very, very more, more rigid in decisions. And but I think things have just evolved, and it's not necessarily, I'm not much different than him. It's just, I think politics has come a long way, and people, it used to be, I think more like closed, like this little closed group. And now it just feels like politics has become very much a community event, and unfortunately sometimes a blood sport. I think you mentioned blood feud.
Yeah, exactly right.
So I think, he was there when they were having smoking. You had smoking. You could smoke in a meeting.
Smoke-filled rooms, right?
Exactly.
The old
I've always heard of those.
Cliche.
But it was kind of funny finding out. It's like, and then when I ran for supervisor, I'd been contemplating it, but still. You can find yourself in these positions, or I do at least, and wonder, did I really mean to do this? But I enjoy it.
Now, one thing that can be said for you, like you were just alluding to, is that you're not a person who is wedded to a concrete set of ideals that you're unwilling to move from. You're very pragmatic in how you've made decisions and the coalitions that you've built. Why do you think it's important to be flexible like that? How does that help you as a public servant?
Well, I think part of it too, I wish people would recognize that. I think people still have a way of putting people in a corner, or saying
D
in a
or
box,
R
right?
Or whatever,
But I think part of it is, and maybe some of this is from being in the days of working in the restaurant and being a waitress. Part of it is trying to work with people, trying to find out what's important to them. If there's a way that you can bridge those gaps, and it's better for everybody, and sometimes you can't. But I think it's important, and I think it's also important to get to know people separate from the political issues. And I think I was talking with you a little bit earlier about, sitting down with people who thought they, would never, say hello to me, let alone be my friend. And you get to know people on a different level, and I think that's part of just what I operate by. Is like, you might not like my decisions, you may think I'm over in this political field or this, but you don't know who I am as a person. And so, and the same, I can say the same for myself. I don't always know who somebody is, and I'm sure that I make my mind up sometimes without all the information. So, but I think that's what kind of enables the ability to try to look at the different, it doesn't always work. But I tried to figure out what is it that can bring people together, and I will miss that. It's almost like, it's not like chess. It's not like, trying to win over something, but it's like you're moving pieces, and how do you fit them together?
Yeah, and try to come to a situation where most people get something of what they want without, not a zero-sum game. Or whatever.
It's not like necessarily winner
takes all or whatever.
Exactly. Doesn't always work that way, but.
Yeah. One of the things that we were talking about briefly before was that, you came into office at a time when women were not as prevalent, as they have become now. I think things are equaling out. They're not there yet, but it's more equal now maybe than it was in the past. How has that been to kind of see that transformation? Do you see more females in your sphere, and how does that feel to have been a part of that vanguard to sort of open things up a little bit?
It's interesting because I didn't think about this when we talked a little earlier. Because we're going, okay, who was there when I was there? And there were women. There was Maxine Hunter Meeks back in the day.
Yeah.
Connie Miller was before I got there, and Sherry was there for a while. Nancy, but what I noticed the most was the position of mayor had been traditionally male. Nancy was the second female.
Yeah, and the first one was way back.
Way long,
the 20s or something.
Yeah. And then I was the third, and then Susan was the fourth, and now Kim's the fifth. And so to me, that seat has definitely seen a change. Why?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't know if I encouraged or people watching me and thought that I was a role model and they decided to get into politics necessarily. But it's nice to think that maybe I had something to do with encouraging.
Yeah, I would say absolutely you did. Yeah, you've raised a family during all this. How difficult was that to balance with the public, demands of being on the council and then mayor and then supervisor, and also how did that impact your kids?
Wow. Well, I think they liked it sometimes.
Sure.
But they also were under public scrutiny all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're in your young, late teens, maybe you kind of get in trouble a few times. And when you get in trouble,
You're the mayor's daughter.
It becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So nothing too terribly bad, but it does affect I think your family life. But also coming from a restaurant, family life doesn't really exist either.
Yeah.
My kids grew up. The babysitter, if there was not someone to take care of them at night, they came to work with me. And so I think what I was, the city council did definitely add more of that. So, but I don't think they ever, held it against me. I do remember the biggest moment I remember was when my son had been first deployed to Iraq, I think it was then, or Afghanistan, I think it was Iraq. And I remember the hearing that we had regarding the Calpine, the LNG terminal.
Yes.
That was a
the big boom
fun meeting.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
For people who don't remember, there was a proposal to put an LNG facility out on the Samoa Peninsula.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people didn't like it.
And there was the busfuls of them at the thing. So all I know is I got a phone call from this really strange number, and I thought, okay, I got to take that. It's it ended up being my son, the one time I'd heard from him.
Oh, wow.
So, of course, during that hearing, the pictures in the paper, I'm missing. But I was there, but I went, I took my son's call. So even though, yes, there's a job to be done, I think we all still try to have our family come first when we can. Although...
In a circumstance like that, that's the only thing you can do, of course.
So they... I'm sure they liked it at times, and other times they didn't like the scrutiny. But
yeah, I have a lot of questions, and we don't have that much time, of course, and that's always the case. But so one thing I really wanted to ask is that could you describe for me how you've seen politics locally evolve? When you first started, there was a way that the meetings were and how people treated each other, and that's changed a little bit. We talked a little bit about how the impact of Zoom and the post-COVID age, but can you talk about how the attitude and the relationships have changed and whether that's a good or bad thing?
Well, that could be an interesting, let me see, where do I go with that? I think overall, it's improved. I think the advent of the ability for more people to be involved in like Zoom and hybrid in our case is good in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I do think that people don't treat each other as well as they used to. The amount of, the level of decorum has kind of flown out the window. I mean, I enjoy being chair, and I try to keep a pretty tight meeting, and I try to keep it fair. And I think for the most part, we're very fortunate in our community. Others are not so fortunate, and their public decorum is out the window.
Yeah.
I do think Zoom was bad for that. I think we all forgot how to deal with people.
Yeah.
And especially, it was so easy to turn somebody off.
Yeah, yeah.
You could turn your own picture off and, ignore them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it really impacted civility. Like I said, it could be our community didn't have some of the impacts that others have had, but you do see it. We were fortunate at the board, but we were mentioning earlier, city council seems to be getting a lot of it now, and why that is where people are gravitating. Although it could be because that's the meetings are in the evening where more people can actually attend.
True.
And so, is there a going back? Is there a way to get people to kind of ratchet back? I hope so.
Yeah.
I feel bad when I read about the city council meetings, and it's like, well, it's great that people can come and talk about being not happy or upset, but you can do it respectfully, and you, like you said, you can disagree without being disagreeable, and people have lost sight of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So another question I wanted to ask is that in your career, is there anything that you felt like is left undone? That like you're seeing, I mean, I'm
Sorry.
everything,
Sorry.
right?
Yeah. Sorry.
But something that you would really like to see come to fruition that you're going to be eagerly watching from your retirement, I guess.
Well, obviously, everything going on the peninsula. I've for years I felt that the peninsula is waiting for a rebirth, and I think it's a really exciting time.
Yeah.
That's something I'm going to miss being involved in. Not saying who knows what I'm going to do next. I'm not retiring. I mean, maybe someone's calling it retiring. I just next chapter. What's next, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
So I think what's happening over there is really exciting. The thing about local government is everything takes time. You start one project and it takes 10 years before it gets close to being done. By that time, you're somewhere else.
Yeah, you can't. There's the term limits.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no way.
Or just or people get tired of you and vote you out, or someone decides to leave. So, I think everything that's happening on the peninsula to me is pretty exciting. I think the peninsula is a very special place out there. People don't know what we have.
Yeah,
and it's.
And it's been lost for a while. It's like after the pulp mill closed, it's this vital space that seems like it's just been in the ether for a while, and it'll be fascinating to see where because that was the economic engine of the area.
When all those went away, jobs went away. My family's business, you can't survive, when your the fuel that runs the economy is gone.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. There's a lot of opportunity. It's not easy out there, obviously. There's a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Infrastructure. But I'll be watching all of that.
Okay. So we have a new woman who's going to be coming on to Natalie Arroyo, who's going to be the 4th District Supervisor. What advice do you have for her as she takes? Is there anything you could tell her? You better do this early because it's going to bite you in the behind if you don't.
Well, I know Natalie, and it's kind of funny because yes, I did support Mike Newman because he had planning. He's had the planning experience. I think Natalie is great. We've met several times, and in fact, she's at the corporate house right now, and I'm not able to be there. But we've tried to have an open line. She's welcome to call me anytime. Some of the things I'm doing is sending her emails, and some of the folks who I have frequent contact with, so she knows where certain projects are. I think it is a big learning curve. I mean, when I decided not to run and I did a My Word column, I apologized to Bonnie Neely because I actually was able to apologize to her in person too. But I realized I thought I knew a lot more than I did, and so it is different than city. But I'd be telling her to meet with your staff.
Yeah.
And trust your staff. I mean, it's easy to second guess, but in something like this, it's important.
Yeah.
I think she's going to be fine, and I think there's a tendency for people who may be watching to have it in their mind that they believe she's going to be, like we were talking about me, always in a specific place or always be in alliance with maybe
like
specific
she represents
supervisors.
a group rather than an individual.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there's a few, some folks we'll have a time adjusting, but it's going to be fine, you know. And I hope I stop by. Who knows? Maybe I'll start working for the county. I can do that, right?
A lot of people do too. So.
Yeah. So, but you know, she's very competent. She's very energetic.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. So but it's always different, and the staff's great.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's going to be a fairly easy transition. I mean, when I went into office, and I can understand why, because I did unseat a long-term incumbent. It was hard.
Yeah.
And I remember having to actually clean out what was left behind and just trying to have those relationships when people are so used to dealing with someone, and when you come in where you've actually unseated you know, somebody, I think there's a different dynamic. And I think in this case where, you know, I had how would I say, self-selected, that it was just time. I don't think people think about it enough, and I think electeds need to step back and decide, do I want to run again, and am I going to be the best thing for this community?
Yeah.
So I think it's all going to be good.
Okay.
And it's just changes.
Well, we're about out of time, so I appreciate it. Real quick, I know, it goes by fast. Are you going to run for higher office?
Local government's where it's at. I don't plan on it, so...
Okay.
But, you know, people ask me all the time. And no, I'm not opening a restaurant either, I don't think.
Okay.
And they're trying to ask me that too, so.
Okay.
Well,
I appreciate it, Virginia. We'll talk to you again soon.
Well, thank you. I hope so.
Yeah.
Have me back. I'm going to be bored.
I bet you will. We'll be right back after the short break.
The PBS NewsHour, putting questions to those in power.
We're in the fourth wave. There aren't enough tests. Is it time for a new approach?
Providing insight into big issues.
The speech in many ways sets the foundation for Democrats as they renew their push for voting rights.
Focusing on underreported issues.
What are these girls missing while their mothers are in prison that you're trying to help them get?
Weeknights on your PBS station and online.
Weeknights at 6 on Keep HD.
Hello, I'm Brian Stokes Mitchell, and I'm thrilled to be hosting 20 Years of Christmas with the Tabernacle Choir. It's an unforgettable evening of unforgettable songs and carols from the world-renowned choir and orchestra, and over 40 guest artists from Broadway, opera, film, and television. Join us for 20 Years of Christmas with the Tabernacle Choir.
Tonight at 9 on Keep HD.
New legislation by North Coast Congressman Jared Huffman to place federal lands in Humboldt and Siskiyou counties in trust for the Yurok Tribe has passed an initial hurdle in the legislation process. House Resolution 6032, the Katamian and Amikamaram Sacred Lands Act, excuse that pronunciation, passed out of the House Natural Resources Committee this past week. Huffman described the land as central to Yurok history, religion, traditions, and identity. By placing them in trust, the federal government would ensure that the Yurok culture and way of life can endure for future generations.
I'll first turn my attention to the Katamian and Amikamaram Sacred Lands Act. That's my best pronunciation, Madam Chair. A bill that will place lands in Humboldt and Siskiyou counties in Northern California into trust for the Yurok Tribe. We've introduced this bill for the first time this Congress, and notably, Senator Padilla and Senator Feinstein have collaborated with us on the Senate side with a companion bill based on technical feedback that we've received from the administration and working with the Yurok Tribe to develop. And that bill had a successful hearing in the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs just a few weeks ago. Natural resource stewardship of land and wildlife, plants, water, these things are at the core of the Yurok people's culture and identity. But 95% of their Aboriginal territory is currently under federal management. This undermines the tribe's ability to exercise traditional practices that have been passed down since time immemorial. This bill seeks to return sacred ground, and I don't use that term lightly, very sacred ground to the Yurok Tribe. It corrects a historic injustice. And I've had the immense privilege to visit Katamian and its surrounding areas. These places are not only majestic and beautiful, they're central to Yurok history, religion, culture, and identity. So placing them in trust is important. It ensures that the Yurok culture and way of life can endure for future generations. Chairman Atterbury is here, and he will be discussing this in further detail. But for the Yurok people, this land identified in this bill is at the center of the world, literally. The historical village and ceremonial site of Katamian is the location of the final series of the annual Pikyavish World Renewal ceremonies. And Amek Yaram, just downriver from Ketamine, is the site of the jump dance and the first salmon ceremony. Both of these are vital components of the world renewal ceremonies. This area is essential to intergenerational teaching and learning needed to ensure future generations of the Karuk people know and understand Karuk culture and customs. Currently, the tribe has a special use permit with the Forest Service that allows it access to the grounds for ceremony when things go well. This access is not guaranteed, and in some years the tribe is interrupted by public intrusions during private and sacred components of the world renewal ceremonies. Under this bill, only Forest Service lands are going to be transferred to the tribe, so there's no concern about private lands, allotments, or existing rights being excluded. I'll next turn my attention to the Yurok Lands Act. The revised Yurok Lands Act would expand the Yurok Reservation and support the tribe's resource-based culture and economy. The Yurok Tribe has relied on natural resources from the Klamath River to the Pacific Ocean since time immemorial. From salmon to redwood trees, these resources provide for subsistence and the cultural and economic livelihood of this tribal community. And this legislation transfers the Yurok experimental forest into trust for the tribe. This will support the tribe's ongoing work as a leader in forest management and conservation while ensuring continued use for existing Forest Service research. The legislation adjusts the Yurok Reservation boundary to include the experimental forest land, also tribally owned fee land and Forest Service land in another very sacred place, the Blue Creek watershed. It designates the Yurok Scenic Byway in the reservation, which will allow for infrastructure improvements and access to federal grants. And importantly, this legislation does not stop other tribes from cooperatively working with federal agencies or hinder participation in the NEPA process under existing authorities. We've been very careful to make sure of that. The legislation has been a long time coming. We've been working on it for a couple of decades, predating even my time in the Congress, but the tribe first brought this to me in 2014, and I have worked with the Yurok as well as other surrounding tribes and stakeholders ever since. Following a hearing in this subcommittee in 2019 and some discussions that ensued, we made several changes that I think have been a real breakthrough. I appreciate Ranking Member Obernolte for recognizing that, and I'm so pleased to say that we've been able to remove the previous tribal opposition to this bill. We've really come a long way. So these positive discussions have happened with the Trinidad Rancheria and the Hoopa Valley Tribe and others. We've made meaningful, significant changes to address concerns, and I'm really pleased to be presenting this subcommittee with a bill that I think is ready to go.
California Senators Alex Padilla and Dianne Feinstein have sponsored a companion bill in the Senate, but it's unclear what the future might be for the House, a bill with a change in leadership. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned. Stay informed.